This episode has been made possible by our awesome sponsors, Sunsail. Thanks, guys.
So 30 years in the Marines, I used to crawl off my boat after some of the more so we used to do Yacht Master Experience weeks.
Yeah.
And I crawled off the boat on those Fridays.
Yeah.
And I could hardly speak. I was that tired.
Yeah.
Because I was navigating my socks off, but also challenging people who are Yacht Master level. And it's still today the most mentally tired I've ever been. So that was my level being experienced. So don't underestimate how challenging being the skipper is if you're not used to it or you don't do it that often.
Hi guys, welcome to the Sailing Podcast. I'm Theo Stocker and I am here today with Justin Morton. Justin, you write for us at Yachting Monthly and you're something of a pilotage expert. And you've done loads of sailing, you've done loads of navigation, lots of other interesting things along the way. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I think first and foremost, I was a Marine for 30 years. Yeah. And then managed to eke out about 10 years of sort of professional sailing. So started racing, ended up running a sailing school in Belize for a few months. In Belize. Yeah. And then got selected to run one of the two Royal Marines yachts. Okay. So I did a year's apprenticeship, having never been on a yacht. And then took over one of those, and then went through all of the programs. So instructor, ROA examiner, and then by the time I sort of finished, and this was sort of early 2000s, and then had to go back and do other things. I'd sort of clocked up about 30,000 miles of teaching miles, and then I still kept racing for a while. So offshore racing, primarily as navigator. And then went off to do operational logistics for a while. So that was all while you were in the Royal Marines? That's all while I was in the Marines. At the taxpayer's expense? It was, but there's very good reason for that, in that it's for adventure training. Absolutely. If I can remember the stock lines for that, then I would pull them out. Get some brownie points, it's phenomenally challenging for people who haven't sailed before. So actually, it justifies itself, and sailing's a great level, we all know, and it's all good fun. So, and I guess in terms of training the military, I mean, this is a completely separate point, but in terms of training the military, as you say, it is a good leveler, and it does put people under duress in terms of you're tired, you're facing physical challenges, you've got new sensations and new things to deal with, and that's really good at teaching people all sorts of the sort of, I say soft skills, but resilience and teamwork and all that kind of stuff that is crucial for military operations. I think so, and it also sort of teaches a bit of humility, because it doesn't matter what rank you are, because you get rank on different skills. Yeah. But then when you jump on a boat, all of that disappears because everybody is being challenged in the various ways that we are all challenged on boats. So that's why I think it was really good. And we used to do, I used to do about 280 days a year with different crews on each week. Yeah. That's how we used to do it. So every week you've got a new crew. Yeah. And every week you either did a course or you did an ROA course, or you went sailing somewhere. Yeah. And the idea was to try and make it as entertaining and interesting as we could for everybody. Yeah. And I guess it sort of gives a bit of variety and adventure to the training as well, but lots of applicable skills too. And it's the same, sailing's just one of the many sports, and there's skiing and there's biking and there's canoeing and all those other things. So it's just one of the many things that we do in our sort of pleasure time, as well as we do and the Marines, well, the whole military sort of run off the back of adventure training is good for everybody. So everyone used to get 2 weeks a year for it. Yeah. And that's how we sort of bolted into it. Yeah. And did you, in terms of how you got into sailing and your passion for sailing, did that come while you were in the Marines, or did you sail before? I sailed as a kid. Just before I joined up, I did my level 1 and 2. And then I did I went to the Royal Marine Sailing Championships, representing 4-5 Commando, me and another guy, and we came third. And then that was from that we were then in Belize, and I just finished a sort of a month-long patrol along the Guatemalan border, is what we were doing out there. Yeah. And I got called in to see the Regimental Sergeant Major, who said, "Justin," well, he didn't call me Justin. Would you like to go back to the UK, learn to become a sailing instructor, and then come out to our adventure training island, which was off Belize City, and spend the rest of the deployment there? And I thought, yes, that would be rather splendid. And that's where I met Sam, my wife, or my now wife. Okay. And was she Marines as well? No, she was working at the Royal Marine Sailing Centre that was there, which kind of became the hub. And it was the hub for us for a long time, where a great guy who ran it sort of sucked people in, and we all just loved sailing. And it was just, we spent all our holidays, leave, everything there.
Yeah.
And I got then was selected then to become one of the yacht skippers. One of the jobs was coming up, and having never stepped foot on a boat on a yacht before, I got taken from no skill at all on a yacht to Yacht Master Examiner in about 2-3 years.
Yeah, amazing.
So it was hard work, and I got thrashed.
Yeah.
And I sailed into every marina on the south coast, and the guy who trained me, I should have asked him if I could say who he was, but phenomenal guy, taught me.
Yeah.
And I started off cooking for the students, listening to what the guy was saying, and what I got was, having sailed with the skipper who was retiring for a couple of months, I learned more in the first week on a course, listening through osmosis of cooking and listening to what we were being taught, than I did in those 3 months.
Yeah.
And then I had a year of that where I was absolutely thrashed, and it was great. And then consequently I managed to my skills just blossomed, and how it was great to be able to be a recipient of that level of knowledge. And then you become a skipper, and then you really start learning yourself, don't you? And that was how I then went on to kept going.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I had to go back and do proper work.
Yeah. I should say, just if you can hear wind noise and wondering where we are, we're actually at the Southampton Boat Show today, where we're going to be doing a talk on stage a little bit later about pilotage. But we're on the RS stand, and we're on the RS Era, which is a 22-foot day boat, if you're interested. And we've got the Boat Show Marina just behind us. But this was the quietest spot we could find today, although it's turned into quite a breezy day as well. So finding a quiet spot at the Southampton Boat Show is a bit of an oxymoron, really. But here we are. So I hope you can hear us okay. I hope the audio is okay. So you did all this stuff in the Marines, and then you had a 30-year career in the Marines, and then you left it. And what did you do after that?
So I ended up going back into the Marines. I was commissioned, and then had a 17 years sort of specialised in operational logistics, and then left in 2017 with the grand idea of having a small holding. So we set that up just before I left, and then we grew our own food with pigs, chickens, milked our own cow, and did all that for a bit.
Amazing.
Then I realised that I was a bit older than I thought. My body was older and more worn out than I thought I was.
Yeah.
And then bizarrely we had a great COVID, because we were just in our own little world.
Yeah.
And then after that we thought we need to go travelling, because if you do that whole self-sufficiency stuff, it's all you do. And then we wanted to go travelling, and it was, if I can say it, a caravan, a camper van, or a boat.
Yeah.
And we went, actually, there's no contest. We went from port to Sunsail, a boat.
Yeah.
And then that, very quickly, we bought a very nice boat, which was the wrong boat for us, sold that, bought another boat.
Yeah.
And then sort of got into, by chance, ended up working for a guy with a TV production company. And then we did some projects together where I ended up sort of consulting for him.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I've done.
Monty.
That's Monty.
Okay, Monty Hall's also writes for Yachting Monthly,
and
amongst other things.
So we did a very interesting thing where we got into the Scillies and back, and did films about it, and that kind of where my sort of chartering with my boat sort of took off a little bit, and now I sort of work with anybody who wants to go, and so the marine and land side is quite complicated, and if you don't really get it, it's quite difficult. So if you want to work in that environment, then come and ask me, and I'll help. That was my kind of if I can boil it into that.
And the boat you've got at the moment is actually a motorboat.
I have a motorboat.
Yes.
Can we say
it's
that?
okay, we forgive you, just about. What boat is it?
So I have a Nelson 42, so a 1978 Nelson 42. And
so still a proper boat. It's not some sort of flashy speedboat. It's a cruising motorboat.
It's a cruising motorboat, semi-displacement cruising motorboat. And the thing that what we like about boats is we want accommodation that is quite distant. So a fore cabin and a rear cabin, two sets of heads, because the people we go sailing with are our friends. And when it's only 4 millimeters of plywood between you realise you're not quite as good friends as you thought you were. So keeping, it sounds terrible, doesn't it? But keeping people away from each other. We have our own space. We're all of an age where space is so. It turned out that we like to look out of our cockpit and be warm. So looking out of windows, so deck saloon, and actually it worked out that if we lost the mast, we could get a bigger boat for about the same amount of money.
Yeah.
So it was
Okay.
it was a practical decision rather than
Yeah.
a heart decision.
Okay. And you're still going out cruising, still doing that kind of stuff?
Fortunately, I get to go sailing probably more than I would if I owned a sailing boat. So
Yeah.
I go sailing a lot, and I don't miss sailing because I still have access to it and I write about it, and it's sort of there. It's in my blood, and there's nothing better, I don't think, than being able to sit to leeward and just watch once you turn the engine off and just watch the boat sort of cut through the waves. I think that's the only bit I miss about sailing. Is that just the peace and calm of that.
Well, talking of peace and calm, I think we've got a big old ship coming past behind us. Big old container ship that's throbbing away in the background. So, and you're based down in the West Country.
So I'm West Country. So our boat is in Dartmouth. So we're up the river in Dartmouth, which is wonderful. And that's where I've sailed most of my career.
Stunning part of the world.
It is.
Yes. Now we are here today to talk about pilotage.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about pilotage in the modern age, in the digital age, because pilotage used to be hand bearing, compass, paper charts, all that kind of stuff. But all that's gone out the window. We don't need that anymore. We've got chart plotters. You just stick your chart plotter on and off you go, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose you can't really say that now. I think so the way I would say it is, knowing where you are is very different from being told where you are. And if you think about how a sat nav works, or what's a sat nav, when is a sat nav good for us? It's when you're driving along and it shows you where you are. It tells you are here. But what's actually keeping you safe? It's the road network. It's being on the left hand side of the road in the UK. It's doing the right thing at roundabouts, traffic lights and things like that. So that's what's keeping you safe. But where we don't like our sat navs is when you're in an unfamiliar place. You're trying to work, and there's traffic. It's a town, an unfamiliar town, and then you're trying to work out where the lane it's telling you to be in is the one that you're in. Are you in the right one? So you end up being sort of sucked into your sat nav, and it feels uncomfortable. And that's the same as being on a boat, except on a boat the road is not the same. It's hard sometimes to pick up what's going on. You're also probably driving your boat from the helm position, which is probably where most people's sat navs are. So you've got to drive. You're also looking at your crew, and depending on their experience, your crew is you're thinking for them as well. And if they're your family or children, there's also that whole duty of care thing that goes on while you're trying to do it. So the last thing you need when you're coming into a port is more work to do. So trying to draw information out of your sat nav. So what we need to do is get our sat navs into our chart plotters into a place where they provide us what we need to do, but within a framework. So navigation isn't a physical machine; it's a process. And I think if we can remember that, then that's the start point, and then it's about creating that framework. So what is it? It's knowing where you're, knowing what's up ahead, so that when you see it, it's familiar. It's about having a decent plan to get from A to B, and it's about making sure that when you are doing that traveling, then you are doing it safely and in a way that doesn't stress you out or cause you concern and the like. So if you can nail those three things, then if you can get
those again.
So it is know what's up ahead, so that when you see it, it's familiar. It's about having a decent plan to get from A to B that isn't just a couple of lines, and it's also when you're traveling, then you are safe while you're doing it, but in a way that doesn't stress you out. And if you can build that, you've got the framework that then all of the instruments, not just your chart plotter, can then help you sort of situate yourself in.
So you're looking to orientate yourself in the real world, looking around you, knowing where you are, not just staring at a screen. Because that's one of the things that strikes me with a chart plotter, is it tells you exactly where you are. So it gives you the sense of reassurance of I know exactly where I am. But what it doesn't tell you particularly well is where you're going to be and what you need to do in order to be in the right place in 3-6 minutes time. So it, in many ways, it sort of, there's a term, bubble of awareness. So you know where you're going to be. Do you know where you're going to be in 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes time? So that, because there's no point looking at a chart plotter going, I know exactly where I am and I'm about to hit the rocks. you need to know what you're going to do to avoid hitting the rocks, and the fact that what course you're going to be going on to in 3 minutes time.
Yeah, a chart plotter it can do all those three things.
Yeah,
it can, but just not all at once, or it's really difficult to do all at once. If you're a commercial skipper and you're very experienced and you're sat behind the helm and your chart plotter's there, you can probably draw enough information out and it's familiar, and you can nail it. If you don't do it very often, which most leisure sailors don't, you're a bit rusty, and therefore trying to do something that unfamiliar is hard. So you need to set yourself up for success, really. And I think the whole bubble of awareness thing is interesting. You've got to build that. You can't just suck it out of the screen. You've got to physically, I think, go through a process to build that bubble of awareness.
Yeah, because there's sort of, in the old days, somebody who was sort of didn't have a big bubble of awareness, you'd have seen them sort of popping up and down the companionway looking at the chart every 2 seconds to go, right, that's where I am, that's where I am, rather than going, I've got a plan and I know I know what I need to do, and the chart's already in my head. And that's kind of the thing, isn't it, with pilotage, is having it in your head.
And you can prove that to yourself. Why is it easy to go into a port you know against a port you don't know? Because you have, even though you don't realize it, your bubble of awareness is already the port that you've been in before, because you know where things are, you know where to look if you're familiar with it. So that's why it's easier. And it's about making so the way that I do it, and it sounds quite labor intensive, but it's not. The easiest way I've found is I just draw the chart out. So we've got great access to charts now in a way that we never had when they were proper paper charts. So you can take all this information from your iPad or whatever. And I basically draw out the land, draw out everything that I can see. I draw out, and I'm not that fussed about what the information is. I just draw it out, and by just doing that, by osmosis, it goes into my head, and that for me gives me a really detailed understanding of where the rocks are, where the buoys are, because it builds into the next bit, which is when I'm going to start my planning. If I get an understanding of the topography in all of its detail, it means every other stage after that can be more flexible, because I can think about it in greater depth.
So you by doing the physical act of drawing, you've actually put a map inside your head.
And this comes from on leadership's courses, or when you're in training in the Marines, you have to build 3D models of the ground that you're going to travel over. And if you ever built them, you never needed to use the map again, or I certainly did, or most of us didn't. And you could plod along, and we didn't all have maps at the time. You could plod along doing your thing and go, I know exactly where I am. And there was no extra effort. And actually, you haven't been to sleep for 3 days, but even so, you build a model and you can still wander around. So I think I'm all for economy of effort, which isn't laziness. It's about just making sure you've always got enough left in your tank. So for me, the easiest, least painful way of trying to create that bubble of awareness of being familiar with what's coming up and noticing the things that I wouldn't ordinarily notice if I just stared at the chart, is by physically copying it out. And I trace it, because you need to get the perspective right, which is important for things like at night. And it really works at night, where you put your buoys in, but when you've physically drawn them on your chart, and then you see these two lights which look like they're in a single plane, and you've worked out the time, the light timings, you can work out, actually, no, that's there. And then once you've got it in your head, it kind of stays. Then that's having that.
So you work quite a lot off an iPad, don't you? So you and I think one of the things you said was that you can actually, the nice thing with something like that is you can zoom the chart to the scale that you want it to fit your piece of paper.
Yes.
And then you put a piece of plastic over it and then draw on.
Otherwise your screen, as you draw, you move the screen. So I just use a hard piece of plastic just over it, and then I stretch it to the size of my piece of paper. And then start drawing, and then you invariably move something, and then you've got to reline it up. So always start with the land, but put everything in. And the sort of the sailing school way of teaching is your sketch map is more it's a route with some landmarks on to give it context. This isn't that. This is draw the map out, learn, so that you learn the area. And you don't have to remember it all, but actually it's about that familiarity when you enter it and you go, oh, that seems about right.
So you're looking for the coastline, you're looking for depth contours,
all of the buoys. Because if you can see them, or anything that you can see becomes a point you can orientate yourself from. So put everything down. And we'll hopefully put a picture up where you can see just the level of the detail I go into. It's all, I use just a piece of white paper and a pencil, and leave it at that. But people can use what they want, but have a go at it. It sounds like it takes ages. It doesn't. It takes almost no time at all. And it's a great way of doing it. And for me, if I'm working with people on my boat, like film crew, I'm invariably not in the center of the channel because I can't be. And it allows me to know how far I can go away. But we'll talk about that in a bit. But so I need to learn a bit more. But it's great for everybody. And it's easier than it probably sounds.
Yeah. And then in terms of the actual planning, you've drawn out your chart and you're wanting to decide what route to take through that landscape that you've just drawn out. What are the source of information you're then going to look at, and what pieces of information are you trying to find?
So I think it all starts with how it's always done, which is, for me, it's a pilot book. I don't think I've ever been in a port, I certainly have never been in a port that someone hasn't been to before, and I think probably every port I've ever been to has been written about. And we don't go to restaurants now without seeing what other people think. So it makes complete sense.
Guide us through the menu.
So it makes complete sense to use a pilot book. And I think because we don't, I don't know, the physical act of looking at a chart sort of drew you in a bit more. I think now where it's a screen, a pilot book sort of adds a depth of richness to it. But also the pilot books will say, look for this and do this here. And they'll give you a great recommendation. And pilot books are lifetimes worth of information. It's the same book passed on through multiple editors and authors. So there's phenomenal amounts of information in there, and so that's where I start. But I think a route, I think we all know this, a route isn't just a bunch of lines. And I think the way to think about a route is it's a task. Your task, should you wish to accept it, is to get from A to B, not only safely, but without stressing yourself out too much, and without unstitching any important relationships on board because you are a bit stressed out. So, and if you think of it in those terms, then you're onto a solid start. And then the way that I do it is I will think of myself as a little boat, a little sailing boat, and I sail myself up the river. And if the case of I'm coming in on a transit. And on the transit, I'm going to have to turn right if someone's coming out. They're going to have to turn right. And the next question I'm going to ask is, how far to the right do I need to go? So think about that beforehand. But also, but use your chart plotter. You know, it does great lines. It does distances, which are a lot easier to do on a chart plotter than it is to get your dividers out. But it's not necessarily about slavishly saying, well, it's a mile. It's not. Yeah, it is a mile. But what does that mean? What's the so what? The so what is a mile at 4 knots is 20 minutes. Are those 20 minutes good to go and call the harbour master? Because you're going to have a conversation with the harbour master. He's going to say, oh, go to so-and-so buoy. And the next question you're going to have is, where's that? So you don't want to be trying to work that out when you've got a tricky bit of pilotage to do. So set yourself up for success. And I think that's the crucial bit. Don't see yourself off. Think it through. Have some forethought. And if you can think it through as a task or a challenge, you know, your challenge, should you wish to accept it, is to get from here to there successfully, and you're on holiday and enjoy yourself, rather than it being that end of the day struggle of, I'm nearly there, I'm a bit tired, you know, and
when you're tired and you're under duress, that's when sort of the volume of the voice goes up and there starts to be a bit of shouting, and phrase tempers at the end of the day and really sour a day's cruising.
And we're also less guarded with our family. So when it's the professional relationships we have at work or whatever else, you can you hold it in, but we tend not to with our family. And we also feel underappreciated if you've had a hard day and you're taking your family sailing, and how come they're not, why aren't they as appreciative? Because I'm struggling here. And you're not going to think of it in those terms, but you're going to think of them being ungrateful. So it's back to that. Make it easy for yourself. Economy of effort, and if you can think of it, it's about the success of the trip. I can definitely think of occasions where, particularly coming into, there's one that springs to mind of sailing into Alderney. The first time I sailed into Alderney with my wife, and we got there, and I probably didn't get my tidal strategy quite right. I was where I thought I should be, but we came in with the tide washing past Alderney, and my strategy was basically to do a handbrake turn, slide in across the swinge, and hop in behind the breakwater, which is exactly what I did. But
at 11 o'clock at night when it's dark and you're trying to line up 2 lights and you've got the best part of 5.5 knots of tide in a boat that does 6 knots, trying to sort of crab your way across with sort of waves and overfalls exploding around you, I was slightly scared. And we got in. My wife said, why are you being so grumpy? What is up with you? I'm not being grumpy.
It takes its toll, doesn't it? I mean, it's supposed to.
I was terrified.
But I think there's a military saying, which is the plan is, planning is everything. The plan is nothing.
Yeah.
And I think if you come up with a fairly decent plan, the chances of you following it exactly are 50-50 or less. But the fact that you've planned means that you can divert or alter something probably more in a more informed way than you would have done had you not and trying to think it on your feet. So
and I guess the thing, if you were following, for example, just following a line on a chart plotter, you know where you are, like on a sat nav, you know exactly where you are as long as you're following the route. And as soon as you divert from that route, you're suddenly lost until you re-establish where you are and what's ahead of you. And it's like following a detour on your sat nav, and you go, and then you find yourself in the middle of the countryside, going, I haven't got a clue where I am. Whereas if you're in a map book, you've kind of gone, okay, well, I'll go right, and that'll get me to this next town. Whereas as soon as you deviate from your route on a chart plotter, you're like, you need to know how much safe water you've got in front of you and how how far you can go.
So I think, to be clear, you can follow your route. It's absolutely fine. And if you can guarantee that you can follow it all the way in, it will get you in and it will be great. And that's how big ships navigate up until the point they get to a port, and then they get someone who knows the port to bring the boat in for them. But you can do that if you can guarantee where you are, guarantee you'll stay on your route. But as you say, as soon as you leave that, you're into the realm where you need to know where you are and what's around you. So you might as well have done some thinking about that beforehand. And it's so freeing, knowing that here's my route. I'm going to handrail this route into a port, and I know how far I can go either side. Is because I've done some thinking about it. Means you're more relaxed and gives you loads of options. And I think the downside of what we're describing here is you end up being more able to deviate from your course than other people who aren't navigating the same way as you deviate from theirs, which can be a tad frustrating at times. Because you know you can where you can go.
So it's a kind of a process of building up a mental picture so that you can visualize your route in. And you do, as you said, walk your little boat in.
I think it's the simplest way.
And then you've sort of hopefully anticipated some of the possible challenges, some of the questions of going, when do I actually make that turn so that I've cleared the rock? And you thought of those questions beforehand and planned in, when am I getting my lines and fenders out? When am I? And I guess even more so if you're single-handing or short-handing, or you're sailing with inexperienced crew, and you need to give yourselves lots of time. Doing that well in advance, and you're calm and you know where you are, so you're not head down in your chart plotter.
And the more inexperienced your crew are, the more facilitating you have to be, and that's incredibly tiring. And therefore, that you setting yourself up for success in the first place. Don't go for anything challenging with people on the boat who aren't experienced. So sort of stick to well within your comfort zone. And I used to say to my day skippers when they finished, I said, the worst thing you can all possibly do now, having just got your new day skipper ticket, is to take your family sailing, because there is you've got a false sense of your own and everyone else's ability, because everyone on this boat is the same level as you, and you can say things like, or take the bow line, take it forward over the guardrails, back through onto the cleat, and then bring it back amidships, but don't stand there, sit at the mast, please. And then your partner will just look at you and go, what? And that sort of level of understanding on the way that, well, I've said it, this is how I've said it for the last week, and now
they don't understand.
So make it really easy for yourself. And the most successful trips when you're a new skipper, and you're trying to draw your family in and justify your boat and all those other bits and pieces, is to try. I
have no idea what you mean.
You end up having what isn't a challenging experience for you from a sailing perspective, but it will be probably a successful experience for everybody. And if you make it easy for yourself, then you don't. You don't have to. Even so, 30 years in the Marines, I used to crawl off my boat after some of the more experience. So we used to do Yacht Master Experience weeks.
Yeah.
And I crawled off the boat on those Fridays.
Yeah.
And I could hardly speak. I was that tired.
Yeah.
Because I was navigating my socks off, but also challenging people who were Yacht Master level. And it's still today the most mentally tired I've ever been. So that was my level being experienced. So don't underestimate how challenging being the skipper is if you're not used to it or you don't do it that often.
Yeah. Okay. Hi guys, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say a few words about our sponsors, Sunsail, who have made this episode possible. If you've been on a sailing charter holiday, you'll know that there is a moment when you realise day is completely yours. The anchor's down, the water's warm, and nothing is demanding your attention. That's the kind of summer Sunsail is built for. With Sunsail Bareboat in Greece and Croatia, you sail on your own terms. You move with the conditions, linger when a place feels right, and shape the week around the water, the wind, and the people you're sailing with. No compromises, just time spent properly at sea. You're doing it aboard Sunsail's award-winning yachts, boats designed for real cruising with the space and comfort that make long days under sail feel easy and the evenings anchor something you genuinely look forward to. Greece is ideal for this kind of sailing. Short passages, steady breezes and islands close enough that the journey is always part of the pleasure. Croatia offers the same freedom, clear water, sheltered routes and harbours that invite you to slow everything down. And if you like the idea of bareboat sailing but you want a bit more support, Sunsail flotillas give you that balance. You sail your own yacht with a lead crew and local knowledge on hand, plus a group to share the experience with. So if a Mediterranean summer is calling, do it under sail. Visit www.sunsail.com/UK and the link's in the description below, and start planning a summer that feels just right from the moment you cast off. Okay, let's get back to the episode. So we've been through all the planning, we've visualised all of it, and we've then got this plan of where we're going to go and what we want to do and what we think is going to happen. And then a ship comes out, and I did my Yacht Master last year, and I got this beautiful nighttime pilotage, and I had to find an imaginary spot in the middle of the sea, and I had to tell the instructor when I got there, and I got my sort of radar plots and all this kind of stuff lined up. And then the Princess Anne Cunard liner came down Southampton water and blew my pilotage out of the water, basically. And that happens. You get pushed off your course and off your plan, and that's why we're saying you need to plan, because you need to know how far off your course you can go. So one of the things you've talked about are the boundaries, and putting boundaries in place so that you know your limits of safe water. So can you just explain a little bit about those?
Like, there are two ways that you navigate. You either know where you are all the time and then respond accordingly because you work from the position you are at, that you know you're at, or the other way that you navigate is rather than knowing
helicopters going over it,
rather than know exactly where you are, you know where all the dangers are, and you've worked out how you can avoid them. So rather than know exactly where you are, you know exactly where you're not. Okay. And if you can work that out, then the beauty of that is the dangers don't move. So you only technically need to work it out once. And the easiest way to think about it, if you think about a channel and you've got buoys up one side, buoys up the other side, you can reasonably assume that it's safe to travel anywhere between those two lines of buoys, if it's a port and starboard marks. And you, even though you don't know exactly where you are, you know you're going to be safe. As soon as you cross that boundary, then you've got to start navigating.
Yeah, you might be safe, but you don't know.
You don't know, so you don't know. So the whole technique is about setting up boundaries. If you think about how an instructor has to navigate, so an instructor, he's keeping the boat safe. That's his primary job. He's also instructing all the people who are on the boat as well, and he's got a navigator, a student navigator, who he needs to give as much latitude as possible to, so they can navigate with all of the instruments that the instructor can't use, and then they'll invariably get it wrong slightly, but what you need them to do is to work it out themselves and then get themselves back on course, because that's the learning. So you have to be able to give them the latitude, and the way that you do it is by just creating those boundaries, as we said. So it could be as simple as a buoy, but you can also use transits. So a transit one thing in line with another thing. It doesn't have to be a given transit. It can be absolutely everything as long as you've identified it on the chart.
Yeah.
And the beauty of a transit is you can see it from anywhere in the cockpit, as long as you can look up and out. And this is, again, all of these are to do with looking up and out, because you can't use the instruments as an instructor. So you can see a boundary from anywhere, but also if you
so
watch,
it could be a buoy lined up with a headland.
As long as you've identified beforehand, and you know what that line means and which is the right side. But if once you watch a transit, it's as accurate as less than the width of your cockpit. And if your boat's moving in a direction that isn't the same way that the bow's going, you can watch the transit and you will see very quickly that's happening. So the first one is a transit, and so you can pick anything you like. And again, chart plotters are great because you can sort of manipulate the maps in ways that you couldn't previously, and things that aren't obvious on a paper chart become more obvious on electronic charts. So have a look, and you can draw lines, and they'll be accurate.
So you can spin the chart around for the way you're traveling.
As the way you're traveling, what will work and what won't work. So that's transit. So the next one is clearing bearings, and people get sort of a bit confused with clearing bearings, but the basic concept is you draw a line, a bearing line to something. On one side is the danger, on the other side it's safe. And then everyone gets into this whole mess of is it no more than or no less than, because that's the way that you're kind of taught how to do it. But if you forego that and just think in terms of parallel lines, then you draw a parallel line which is from your compass out, and the binnacle compass is great for it because you can see it from most places if you've got one, or look over the top of your bulkhead compass. And then you draw a line out, which is the bearing, and then draw a parallel line back from the object, and it becomes very obvious.
So you look down your clearing bearing off your compass, and if it points at the thing that you've measured off, then you know you're on that line.
You're on the line. But
if it points on the landward side, you know you're in trouble, and if it points to open water,
and it's a lot more obvious. But also, as you watch the boat move, you see it move, rather than trying to take a bearing and then it's now doing this, so it's reducing, or it's that way. Which way am I supposed to turn? So think of it in parallel lines, and it becomes very obvious. And it's almost like a transit if you watch it, because you've got the two parallel lines converging or spreading apart. So that's clearing bearings. And then the final one is depth contours. So depths are brilliant. I use them probably more than most things. And again, the basic concept find a depth contour. On one side is the danger, the other side it's safe water. Add the tide. Don't go any shallower than that. And then you've got your that's your depth contour. And you will have recognised the depth contours if you do the sketch thing at the start. Sometimes it's quite difficult, but others are really obvious. So if you take Foy, for example, if you look at how you enter
that's
Foy,
a little harbour in
Cornwall. And if you have a look, the 5 metre contour, apart from one tiny little area, basically covers all of the dangers all the way into the port, and as many students will attest, you can tack on the 5 metre contour line and bounce your way into Foy we didn't do it in fog, but in any conditions, and not hit anything. So if you can find those things, those handrails, and we did Solcombe for the article, and we used the because
you come in and you've got a Solcombe, you've got a big bay that comes in, and it's more or less open, but then you've got a big bar that extends across it with a few little rocks dotted around,
and then a shallow bit on the right hand side as you're coming in, which goes back to the whole transit thing we said earlier on, where how far to the right can you go, and there is a handy contour line there that you can use. Don't go shallower than whatever it was, 2 meters, whatever. So contour lines are the final one. If you can, and I think of it as sort of boxing yourself in, but it's rarely boxing yourself in. So you use these tools to sort of stretch out it's all about flexibility. So come in have a route line, and absolutely, if you can follow it, great. But if you need to deviate, you know how far you can deviate, and that's
because you can look at your transit or your depth or your clearing bearing and go, I know that I'm some distance off my track, but I know that I've still got 100 yards, 200 yards before I get anywhere near that rock or the danger.
And that gives you, it stops you being stressed out, because as soon as you leave, as we said before, if you're on your line and your safety depends on that, you're very reluctant to leave it, and the minute you leave it, you're in no man's land. Whereas if you have something, even the acknowledgement, so going into Foy, actually I can go over there as far as the 5 metre contour line, as long as it doesn't read that, I'm fine. and that gives you so much more peace of mind.
Yeah.
So
I think what we're saying is it's actually it's not an argument between electronic navigation, digital navigation, and paper navigation at all. It's simply saying that pilotage is about planning and visualization and working out all of your knowing what's going to be coming up and have worked through that so that you've got a proper plan of how you're going to get into a harbour in the real world.
Yeah, I think it's what you don't want to do is look at your chart plotter and wonder or hope you are where it says you are. You need to, ideally you want it to be the other way around. And to do that, you need to create that framework.
Yeah.
So it's about knowing that knowing what's up ahead so it's familiar as it comes in. It's about having that decent plan as we just talked about. And it's about having a way of navigating that's slightly more flexible and wider than just a single line on a chart. And if you've got those three things, then probably most of the time that you're sailing or coming into a port, you probably know where you think you are.
Yeah.
Or you are where you think you are. But what's great about having a chart plotter on board is, and you described it about going into Alderney. You know, there are times where you're up against it, you get it for a bit, and then you lose it, and everybody makes mistakes in pilotages. Doesn't matter who you are, you will make a mistake. And before we had chart plotters, there was no second opinion.
Yeah.
And the comfort that being able to look at your chart plotter and it confirm you are where you think you are, or there's something wrong, and then you can do something about it. I don't think that comfort can't be overstated.
Yeah.
Because there is a time when you will kind of lose where you are, and just having the chart plotter then confirm it is great, and it works, and it doesn't. I think if you approach it in that way, you're taking the best out of what a chart plotter does in its basic form as a chart with you on it. And it, as a system, it sort of multiplies your I suppose your ability.
Yeah. So I suppose one of the things with sailing is always to have redundancy, and particularly when it comes to navigation, you would never trust a single source of positional information. So you're doing a fix, you wouldn't just take one line, you wouldn't just take two lines, you take at least 3 lines for a 3-point fix, and then you use that against your depth to confirm where you are, against the transit, against what it all looks like, against the buoyage. And then you've got your chart plotter as well, which is very, very good, but it's also it relies on your GPS being accurate and the GPS signal working, and you're having electrics and all battery and all that kind of stuff. So you would use that as a very good, but a single source of position information to confirm it and to reassure you where you are. But you wouldn't ever, if you're doing it properly, you wouldn't ever rely on that as a single point of, because it's no.
And you need to be
not infallible.
You need to be in. How do you know you are? How do you know you are where your chart plotter is telling you are? You are absolutely dependent on it if you haven't got some sort of other system that doesn't allow you to say the chances of, we talk a lot about what happens when you're if you lose your electricity and stuff. We've all got there are probably 5 chart plotters or GPSs on this boat now.
Laptops and
so we've got multiple versions of that. But it's about being informed.
Yeah.
And I think it's about being able to say, yes, that is where I think I am.
Yeah.
Knowledgeably, because otherwise you are on a single source, which you shouldn't be. So I think that's the crucial bits. But everything plays a part.
Yeah.
And if you use it as a whole, then it's really powerful.
Yeah.
And all of your navigation, your safety, and everything else improves. But you've got to accept that it doesn't all just come out of a box.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got to physically do something. That process of navigation is something that we need to keep. And how much you do of it, we go into quite a lot of detail in the pilotage article. It doesn't necessarily have to be as much as that.
Yeah.
But that's just a model version of a lot of detail.
Yeah.
And it depends on the scale and everything else. So
yeah.
Levels of it, but don't forget you can't just using your chart plotter and hoping you are where it says you are is not the right way to do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, time's nearly up, but is there a harbour that for you that has been really difficult to pilot into? Are there places that you've found particularly challenging?
So we did the Three Peaks yacht race. I've done the Three Peaks yacht race twice.
Yeah. Is that the Wales, England, Scotland?
Yeah. And I was thinking about this the other day actually, and the most hideous pilotage I've ever done was it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. It was a 4-7. We'd gone through the Menai Straits, and we were out the other side on the northern side, and it's a windy road, a windy track, which is a 4-7. We were doing about 8-9 knots. I had a handheld GPS, which was my little trusty handheld GPS, which still works actually. And we were navigating, and I was navigating, and the buoys are like a mile apart, and it was dark, windy, couldn't see much. The sails were up, and I lost it, and I don't know where we are, and I had to go down below, and my instinct was the deeper water was over to the left, as it was, as we were heading up. So that's what I said to the guys, and I had a hideous 20 seconds where I rapidly plotted myself in the middle of the mud on the eastern side. Yeah. And then from there we got it. Then I knew which direction to look at the for the buoy, because what happened, the guys were very good sailors, and we were at risk of broaching. So they were desperate. They were steering all over the place. Yeah. And with the buoys being quite some distance apart, I think one of them had a really long interval length, so we missed it. So that's the worst. But it wasn't the most dangerous, because everybody on board was professional, really good sailors. We were in a racing boat, which kind of don't worry about as much as your own boat, and that was all fine. Yeah. And that was that's probably the worst one. And that was from a not worrying, if you want to go from my most hideous day ever, it was I got knocked over. So come back from Guernsey, we capsized, we got knocked flat in the channel by a wave, which knocked out all sorts of things. And then we were trying to get to Plymouth, couldn't, ended up going to Dartmouth, and then the tide was coming up the channel, so towards here. Yeah. And it was that balance of sort of 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, pitch black. Start point hadn't appeared. I was doing estimated positions. Yeah. So over that distance in a 747 or whatever it was, horrible leeway, 3-4 meter seas, and it was about trying to find. Start point light didn't appear when I thought it was going to appear, and I had a horrible hour and a half, because just the other side of start point is a shallow bank. Yeah. It was low water. Yeah. I think it was low water. The tide was coming up. I think the tide was definitely taking us up, because my concern was if I really go downwind, the chance of us getting to Dartmouth is slim. I'm going to end up in Torquay in about 3 hours' time, and it's going to be hideous. Whereas I probably had an hour and a half to get to Dartmouth, and I wished I didn't have GPS. My GPS had died as we got knocked flat, and I thought, there's just nothing. There was just nothing I could do other than stare out. And if when you sail at night, you can freak yourself out by just looking at the waves and think, oh, is this the breaking? Is that a breaking wave I can hear? Yeah. So that was the worst bit. And in the end, after about an hour, the start point light appeared. Yeah. Slightly not where I thought it was going to appear. And then as soon as I had that, I could then sort of kind of roughly work out where I was, and it was all right. But that was where the only time I think I've really missed having that second opinion sort of GPS was that. Yeah, that was pretty grim.
And finally, to finish, which harbour would you recommend everybody sails into at least once in their life? Where is the nicest pilotage you've done? Which harbours are lovely to go in and worth going into? There's lots of lovely harbours, but have you got a favourite?
I think the Channel Islands. I think if you were going to go anywhere and you want to do real pilotage and real navigational skills, I'd go to Channel Islands and pilot yourself into all of the little anchorages. Don't just go straight to the marinas. Just go over there and just go and play in the anchorages around Guernsey, Helm, Sark.
Yeah, it was lovely.
And that I used to go there an awful lot with my students, and we used to have a phenomenal time as a builder. But miles or experience comes from tricky or challenging pilotage, not miles. So crossing the channel, quite straightforward once you've done it a couple of times, and there's no benefit in the miles. But 20-30 miles around the Channel Islands is great.
Quite a good training environment.
If you want to go closer to home, so I'm West Country based. I think Dartmouth's lovely, but go up the river.
Yeah.
Don't just stop at Dittersham.
Yeah, because you can go all the way up to
You can go
Totnes.
to Totnes,
and-
get the
it's
tides
beautiful.
right, and it's a great day trip.
And you've got a little packet in. You stop
Yeah.
for there's a number of
Yeah.
pubs actually that on the River
Yeah.
Dart that are
Yeah.
worth stopping at.
Yeah.
Do a little
Yeah.
pub crawl
Yeah.
up the river, not going drunk, obviously in charge of a boat. But, some
Yeah.
lovely places to
Yeah.
stop up there
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so Dartmouth's great. I think Falmouth is wonderful. Going all the way again, don't just stop at the Falmouth. Go up the river, and if you haven't been up the river, there's a shock. There's sort of a spoiler once you've navigated your way up the River Fowl.
Yeah.
You become quite disappointed with your ability as you get up. But I won't spoil it for anybody who wants to have a go.
Okay, there you go. Good.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably all we've got time for today. We've got various things to do at the boat show, lots of boats to go and have a look at. But Justin, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us about pilotage. There we go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any questions or there's stuff you'd like us to talk about, let us know in the comments. But in the meantime, give us a thumbs up, give us a like and a share and all of that. And we will see you next time on the Sailing Podcast. Thanks to our awesome sponsors, Sunsail, for making this episode possible.